All right, in this lesson what we're going to do is take a look at BSP brushes. Now we've already seen addition and subtraction brushes, and we're going to use them again, this time to facilitate some of the other things or other tools that are available for working with brushes, such as, in this lesson we'll be looking at intersecting brushes, brush clipping, vertex editing, and we'll talk a little bit more about rebuilding geometry. So with that, Logan, let's go ahead and start out by building, let's say, two different rooms. One that's actually going to be part of the real map that we're creating for players to play, and the other room is going to serve more as a construction zone that we can use for building different prefab brushes.
Okay. So first I'll come down and grab a cube primitive, right-click to bring up its properties, and set its height to about 512, and its width and breadth to 1024.
1024, yeah, that's going to give us plenty of room. Excellent. Now this time, instead of going in there and actually subtracting it out, let's go ahead and assign a texture ahead of time. So we'll go ahead and bring up our texture browser, pick a texture, good. Now when we come in here and we actually do a subtraction, that texture will be assigned to all of our walls for us.
Okay, now I could hit the subtract button or the shortcut Control-S.
Excellent. So if Control-S does a subtraction, I guess it might be good for us to go ahead and tell them that Control-A does an addition brush.
Right.
Okay, so let's go ahead now and build another room. This time, this other one we're going to build is going to be, let's just make it a lot taller. It's already plenty wide enough.
Let's make it about twice as high,
Okay,
also
so
1024.
That's good. And again, this room will not be part of the actual map that a player would play. This is just a construction zone, and you're going to see what we're talking about in just a second when we start doing intersecting brushes. Okay, good. So now that we've got our construction zone in place, let's go ahead and talk about, let's say, intersecting brushes.
Okay, well first let's start building some geometry. How about we build a support pillar for our first room?
Okay, that sounds good.
So I'll start out with a cylinder. I'll bring up its properties, and we'll set its height to 512, like the room we had before, and set its outer radius down to about 128, and say build. Also, we want to go ahead and change the texture first before we go and add this in.
Yeah, we want to have something that's kind of contrasty against this back wall.
So I'll grab a metal texture. Now, I'll use the shortcut Control-A, add that in. And now I've got the start of a pillar in the middle of this construction box.
So now what you're going to do is go in there and use another cylinder construction brush, but this time we're going to set some special properties on it so that it's hollowed out, more like a tube, so that we can create a dumbbell-looking shape.
Right. So I'll bring the cylinder's properties back up. I'll set its height down to 256. And this time I'll set its inner radius to 64. And for inner radius to be relevant, I need to set hollow to true. And I'll go ahead and hit build. And there we have more of a kind of ring shape that we can cut out from this first cylinder.
Absolutely.
By subtracting it.
Oh, very nice. Now, what we're looking at right here is actually two different brushes. We've got the addition brush and then the subtraction brush. And Logan, go ahead and show them by switching over to a wireframe view inside your perspective. There you go. You can actually see the bright blue being the addition brush, and the yellow selected brush is your subtraction brush. Now, of course, if we want to use this shape all over our level, we would not want to have multiple addition and subtraction brushes together. What we can do is we can go in there and intersect these brushes and create one builder brush from it.
Right. So I'll come back over and do a textured view. Let me grab a cube to surround this first. Because what intersecting is going to do is basically have the builder brush completely surround whatever brush is inside of it and conform to it. Let me go ahead and bring in, another cube up. Let me change some of its parameters. Let's set its height to about 768 and its width and breadth to about 512. Just to easily see that it will completely surround that column. So if I take a look in the front view just to verify, then we can see that the column that we've created exists inside this builder brush.
And now everybody should be able to see the relevance of having this construction zone, because if we would have done that over there inside the actual room that we're creating for the map itself, we would have had a bit of a problem with the actual brush that we're going to use to intersect these two other brushes, as it's a little bit too large. It's going to be overlapping that other room.
Right. So now with this set up, I can go ahead and do the intersect by clicking intersect.
And the hotkey for that would be?
Control-N.
Control-N. Okay, so now take a look, man. We've got a builder brush in here that's actually the shape of those two pieces of geometry that we've created.
Right. So now I can go ahead and drag that back to our first room and then kind of line it up to the edge there. Let me go look over. And now you can see that we have that as one single brush. It's no longer two separate brushes.
So now we can do just a simple addition?
Right. So I can add that in. And then if I drag the builder brush away, you see that it's just one single addition brush.
Very nice. So now let's go ahead and let's put that on the other three corners of the room. Let's go ahead and show them how we can duplicate that addition brush there.
Okay. Well, first you could simply right-click on it and say duplicate. And let me grab that duplicate and put it over in the corner, line it up. Now, if I wanted to grab both of these and duplicate them at the same time and move them to the other side of the room, I could hold Control so I have both of them selected. Then I could use Control W. I could also right-click and say duplicate or use the shortcut. So I'll hit Control W. That will duplicate them, and then I'll simply Control drag them to the other side of the room.
Okay, something very important to point out. You'll notice down the perspective view that we're not actually seeing this geometry down there. And again, that's because we simply need to come in and rebuild geometry. Oh, wow, and there it is. All right, excellent. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at brush clipping. First of all, what is brush clipping, Logan?
Brush clipping is where you can set up you can define a plane and then use that plane to cut up a selected brush or brushes.
Okay, very nice. Let's go ahead and go back over into our construction zone area and create, let's go ahead and create another cylinder.
Okay. So let me grab, let's see what was in the cylinder last. Let me just turn hollow back off and build that.
Okay.
So
go ahead and drag it over there into the construction zone area.
Just drag that over.
Now we've got hollow right now that I'm looking at. There we go. That's what I want to see.
Build it back. So there, in this corner we can go and...
And you know what, just to kind of simplify things, go ahead and grab the other two brushes, the addition and subtraction used to make that original shape, and delete those out and rebuild geometry real quick.
Okay. I'm going to delete those out. And there, now I have more room to work with.
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and add this in, just a simple cylinder, and let me drag the construction brush out of the way. Okay. Now, if we wanted to set this up so we could start placing these clip markers to define where we're going to do the clip, we need to first enter the brush clipping mode. With that mode active, we can then control and right-click to place clipping markers. I control right-clicked once there and once at the bottom. And there I have a clipping marker.
You also got this, you got this red line that connects the two, showing you where the slice, if you want to look at it that way, is going to be made. And you also have a little red line that's perpendicular to it in the center, and that's showing you the surface normal. That's basically pointing to the direction that's going to get deleted.
Right. So now, if we wanted to come in here and actually clip this real quick, if you're using two clip markers, make note that you do need to have whatever viewport that you added the clip markers to selected when you try to actually go and clip. So with the top view selected, if I was to go
and we probably want to select the geometry too.
Right.
There we go.
It is dependent on what you have selected, and you could also have multiple brushes selected at one time and clip them.
Very cool.
So with this one brush selected, I can then go and say clip, and then that side gets clipped off. Notice how it doesn't show in a textured view until we rebuild geometry.
But right now we wouldn't necessarily want to rebuild geometry, would we?
No, because that would get rid of all our undos. After you've rebuilt geometry, that's it. You either, if you want it back, you have to just edit it back or create a new one.
So go ahead and make your top view active again. And now let's go ahead and undo that. Okay, so now you can flip that if you want, right?
Right, by using the flip normal button. It's now pointing to the other way, and if we were to clip that, then you can see...
Got to be careful about clipping, making sure that you have the right viewport active when you do it. There you go.
Now you can see the other side was clipped.
Okay, very cool.
So let me go and undo that, bring it back.
Okay, and what else can you show us now about working with these clip markers?
Well, you notice that... both times all I did was a clip, and when I clipped it, one side got deleted. If we wanted to keep both sides and separate this into two brushes, we could use split. And split, with split, the normal, or the way that extra arrow is pointing, is irrelevant, because both sides will remain. So if I was to split this brush, then you can see that both brushes remain, and I could probably go in and move one of them out just a little so you can see that they're two separate brushes now.
Very nice, very nice. But again, if we rebuild geometry, we're going to lose our undos for that.
Right. Okay. And notice how I left the mode and came back into it, and it kind of remembers where I had the clip markers, but we're not sure. The last button down here is to delete all of the existing clip markers, so we'll go ahead and delete those out just to make sure we clear things out. Now, the last type of clipping we can do is an actual 3D plane type clip. For these last clips, we've been using just 2 clip markers and then looking straight from the top view. If we wanted to say cut, and then we were cutting straight down, of course. If we wanted to cut at more of an angle, we'd have to use a 3rd clip marker so we could define more of how we want this supposed split plane to be positioned. So let me go in and re-add those first 2, control right-clicking. So I've got 2 clip markers. Now let me go into a different view, and let me zoom in a little, and let me go and add a 3rd. We can control and right-click down here at the corner. And now I've got a kind of angled plane going on here. Let me kind of control left drag that around a little bit, so we'll cut straight through the corners.
Ah, so control left drag will allow you to reposition.
Right, you can go in and reposition your clip markers.
Very nice.
So now with that in place, that isn't dependent on a certain orthographic view, because now it can, off of these 3 markers, generate a 3D plane in a sense, so it would work from, say, a 3D perspective view. Now if I was to go ahead and do a clip selected, now you can see it cut off, but at a 3D angle. So we could have gone in there and moved that clip marker to wherever we wanted to define this angle or what part got clipped.
Okay, very nice. So now, at this point, you can go ahead. Let's just rebuild geometry now, and you can see what we've done to this poor thing.
So now you can see where we sliced that off and added a flat face to it.
Very nice. Now, you got to be careful, because when you start getting in there and actually using this clipping method, you can relatively easily crash Unreal Ed if you're not really careful about, as Logan was saying just a second ago, making sure correct viewports are active, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, or if you cut through certain points and generate it in an invalid shape or stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's see, what else? Let's go ahead and take a look now at some vertex editing.
All right, so let me go ahead and delete this little cylinder out now. And let me rebuild geometry to clear it out. So finally, let's add a cube and vertex edit it a little. Let me go and grab and bring it down to 256 again, make it more manageable, easier to see. Zoom out a little, bring that to the center of our construction room, and go ahead and add it. So now with this cube in place, let me drag the builder brush out of the way again. And here we go. I'm also going to change the perspective to a wireframe just so we can get an idea of what vertices I'm grabbing in 3D. So, in order to actually drag vertices, I'll go in and enter vertex editing mode. And with vertex editing active, I'll select this brush. Now, I can click on any vertice I want to select it. I could hold Control and click on one, and now I can see it selected. I might also go ahead and turn on large vertices just so it's easier to see. So now if I go down to my wireframe and look around, you can tell that those 2 vertices are selected. Let me also turn on the real-time preview so that you can see vertices as I drag them around. So in the top view, if I was to control and left drag, you can see I'm moving those vertices. Looks like I might have 2 cubes on top of each other. Let me move that back over. Go into move and turn large vertices off. And
you do.
Yes, I do. Let me delete one of those really quickly. Move this back and rebuild geometry. Okay, this will be a little bit easier to see now. Vertex editing mode, large vertices, Control, left click on a single vertex.
So you don't have to marquee around to select all the way down.
It depends. It doesn't always work that way. You have to be careful. As for marquee, I would definitely marquee select to ensure that you grab one of those. Like from the perspective view, you could control and grab single vertices, and using control to add or take away from the selection. And of course, if you wanted to make sure that you grabbed a series of vertices, I would use the Control-Alt left drag. So then you can see I grabbed both of those. I can hold Control and move them around. One thing I'd like to point out is when you're working with vertices, I would recommend against, if at all possible, if you drag that one single vertice, you can see it's starting to kind of warp the shape a little bit, and that's one area where you could kind of get into trouble working with vertices. It's better to go and grab both vertices at the same time and move them, because then you have more of a uniform shape.
Okay, of course, it can be a bit confusing for those by watching up in the top view when he does that, because when you move that one selected vertex over in the top view, it looks like you actually have the bottom one that's being left behind.
Well, that's just the view. It hasn't updated yet.
Exactly. I'm just pointing that out that, yeah, that can
Right.
be kind of confusing because it's actually taking place in the viewport that's active in the one that you're working with. And so you'd kind of expect that to update. Don't let that confuse you. You can just verify down in your perspective view that everything is indeed selected properly.
Okay, and of course you can grab more than just a single row column of vertices. You could control drag over, say, 4 of them, and then move them all together.
Okay, very nice.
Also, one last thing with the Control drag. Notice how if I Control Alt left drag over the bottom, I've lost my selection on the first 2. Or if I Control Alt over just these 2, now I have 2 vertices selected. If I wanted to keep using the Control Alt drag, but grab more vertices and not lose my old selection, I can do Control Alt Shift and then drag. And when I drag, I won't lose my old selection.
Okay, excellent. So we've pretty much already talked about rebuilding a couple of times throughout this lesson. Well, it's very important, and it can also work against you when you're in there actually doing brush clipping by kind of getting rid of those undos if you needed to go in there and flip your actual clip plane. But now I think we've covered everything that we set out to cover in this very basic lesson of working with BSP brushes. You guys already know now how to add brushes in, use subtraction brushes. You also know how to go in there and intersect brushes. You see now why we're using the construction zone so that we can do things like intersecting without any problem. We also did some brush clipping. We took a look at it, doing it in a 2D state and also in a 3D state. And then we wrapped it up with doing a little bit of vertex editing. So that's going to wrap up this lesson right here. Thanks, everyone.